Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented to the board.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? All in favor of accepting the minutes of October 17th?
Aye.
Next on the agenda is Chief Hart.
If I could, I'd like to bring before you the newest member of the Clinton Fire Department, Dustin Whitaker. A lifelong resident who grew up in town, attended the public schools until freshman year when he went to Assabet. Comes highly recommended by the neighbors, the references, the employers. I think he'll serve the town very well. Dustin Whitaker.
Well, welcome, Dustin.
Welcome aboard.
We wish you a long, healthy, safe career with the department. You've got a great group of brothers to work with down there. Safety and health to you in your career. And Chief, good luck with the new hire, and I'm sure you'll do the town proud. So, best of luck. Welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Just to touch base, if I may, on the other openings, November 17th, we have 2 candidates that will be going down for the physical abilities test. That's the final step in the hiring process. At that point, once we're notified on their results of the physical ability tests, we'll be coming up with a start date. At that point, we'll bring them forward to the board to introduce them.
Very good. Thanks, Chief. Next up are several items on the agenda regarding liquor license application, change of manager. I'm going to excuse myself, Dean, and turn it to you for the next 3 or 4 items on the agenda. And I'll return in a few minutes.
Would the parties next on the agenda please come to the table? State your name and address for the secretary.
Good evening, members of the board. David Philbin, attorney here in Clinton. I have with me Rogers F. Bush, also of Clinton. Roger, you want to state your address?
6 Horseshoe Lane, Clinton.
Basically, we're here before the board. Mr. Bush has been one of the owners of the Apple Country Market since 1987 when it first opened. This is over across from the Armory on Mechanic Street. And he has been one of several owners. He's now the sole owner of the location. We need to straighten out the paperwork to have him be designated as the manager. And as part of that transaction, he has asked this board to approve a pledge of the license and a pledge of the capital stock to secure a loan that he's put up or obtained to complete the buyout of the other partner. And Mr. Bush has been in the business for 29 years and has been a resident of Clinton for 6 years. And I'm not aware of any problems with that location, and I ask the board to approve those requests.
Dennis, can we do this as one motion, or does this all have to be as it's spelled out here?
And you can do it as one motion.
To allow all 3
Sure.
proposals. And, this is a public hearing. I'll open it up to the public. Anybody that's for or against these. The change of manager, the pledge of the license, or the stock. Anybody like to speak against at this time? Anybody like to speak in favor at this time? There being none, I'll open it, close the public portion and open it up to the board. Any questions, Mark?
No.
Mary Rose?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move first motion to be that we accept the change of manager. 2, that we accept the pledge of the license. And 3, that we pledge start in the name of Rogers F. Bush.
Motion's been made, is there a second?
Second motion.
Motion been made and seconded, what's the pleasure of the board?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Chair votes aye. It's unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is a pledge of license application for the historic Strand Theater. Mr. Fleming.
Greetings again. This is kind of an instant replay of something that happened at the beginning of the year when the Strand Theater changed hands. And at the time, we had included in the paperwork a request for a pledge of the license to the bank. And somewhere between here and Boston, when the license came back, it did not have the pledge of the license indicated on it. So this is simply a resubmittal to send down to the ABC again, so that when it will come back with an approval on it. Nothing's changed. The operation has done pretty well, and hopefully the board would see fit to approve the pledge of that license. That was part of the original loan granted to the folks when they bought the place.
Mr. Chairman, just for discussion, I know I've been there several times since the new ownership has assumed responsibility down there. As you've said, they have worked extremely hard to really make it a successful business. And, this is just a very standard procedure.
Once again, this being a public hearing, I'll open it up to the public portion. If there's anybody that would like to speak for this pledge, anybody that would like to speak against it? There being none, I'll close the public portion. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve the pledge for the liquor license.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. The pleasure of the board. How does the board vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Unanimous.
Thank you. Good night.
Did I give him a chance to get a drink of water?
Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting, just a question to Town Solicitor. Is Mr. McCoy going to be here this evening? Do you know?
My understanding of the request is actually beyond the agenda, so it's my understanding that he is going to be here, but I did not speak to him today. If he's not here, I'm prepared to go forward and to relay to the board what he is asking the board to do. Essentially, this is comparable to a situation that we had last December where somebody donated some land for conservation purposes. It's my understanding that the Conservation Commission, through Mike Murray, has indicated that they are in favor of this and would like to accept this, but it requires a two-step process of the board and the Conservation Commission to approve it. And this is one of the steps in that process.
My only concern, and just look at, for discussion while we're waiting, is I know it does say that it's 26.1 acres of land, but there's no map attached to it, so that it basically shows you from nothing from the assessor's office that would show you exactly where this land. I know obviously the general area, but I'm just, from a curiosity position, where exactly.
Sure,
in
well,
that-
hopefully if Tom does attend tonight, he'll have a copy of the plan with him, and he could show the board. If not, then he could at least address the board, let you know what he's interested in doing, and then maybe your next meeting, he could present a copy of the plan to you. The only thing that I've received is essentially the deed, and then I communicated with the Conservation Commission, and they had indicated this was a favorable thing that they wanted to accept.
You run a faster meeting than I do. My goodness.
About 10 minutes ahead of schedule, Mr. Chairman. Around the donation of conservation land.
Mr. Chairman, I just raised the issue with the solicitor that I know that the documents that we received do state that it's 26.1 acres, but I asked, did we expect to see Mr. McCoy here tonight, and would he have an assessor's map that would actually show the actual property? I mean, I would be reluctant to, even though I know the conservation is in favor of it, I would still like to see where exactly the land is.
I agree, sir. I thought that's what we had requested. It was on the agenda before, was to actually have a map of the parcels and a better understanding of where the land is actually being built on. For conservation.
Mr. Chairman, since we're 10 minutes ahead of schedule, I'll make a motion to go out of order. We can go to the administrator's report, if that's fine with the board. That'd be my motion, to go out of order.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Last time, my recollection, Mr. Chairman, in talking to the administrator, was that it was just essentially taken off of the agenda. I know for surplus property, we're talking about submitting additional information to you, but that would be separate.
We had requested that they have representation and they display to us what land is actually going to be assigned to conservation. So there's been a motion made and seconded to go out of order to move to administrator's report. We'll get back to our conservation.
Sure, yeah, he's not due to be here until 7:30.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Administrator's report, Michael.
Okay. Chairman,
Oh, I think he's here. Mr. McCoy is here.
Yeah, we can just go through these while we're here. The first item of business is for a late-night closing request for Saturday, November 17th for the Polish American Veterans Club.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to grant the Polish American Veterans Club for a late-night closing. Second, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
One abstention.
And I believe at the last meeting, I think we did the November late-night closings for all the other establishments, I believe, so I think we're all set on that. The next is a Finance Committee transfer request from veteran agent Chris Dezek in the amount of $5,000 to cover veteran benefit payments for the remainder of the fiscal year. This line item was reduced during the budget process because at that time we were unsure how much money would be needed, but there was the understanding that the veteran agent could come back for a transfer if necessary, and it has been approved by the Finance Committee pending review and final approval by the Board of Selectmen. So,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve this. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
next is a list of water sewer abatements for the recent readings and billing for water bills that's been submitted by DPW Superintendent Bill Spratt.
Motion to accept the abatements.
I'll make a motion to also move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is a request from the Clinton High School to have a raffle permit. This would allow them to raise funds for senior activities, and a big cost, would be for the production of the class yearbook, for the senior class yearbook.
Make a motion to grant the request for the raffle permit.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
The next is a request to use the town hall for Friday, November 30th to host a birthday party, 6:30 to 9:30. I don't have the letter, but I believe it was going to be approximately 40 people or so.
Yeah, that's what I would.
It's correct, there's 40 people.
It is. Okay, thank you.
No conflicts with me.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion
Is there a second?
Second motion, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? Under discussion, I still need to get work with South Narrows and the others. We need to get this use policy nailed down. Michael, if you can keep harping on it, get this complete before the end of the month, I would greatly appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we do have the
apologize
drafts
for-
in place. I think if we just had another meeting, we could finalize everything.
Great.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next is a request from Nipro Incorporated to use the town hall, file, and auditorium on Friday, December 21st. This will be to host their annual holiday reception for employees. They've been doing that for the last couple of years here at the town hall due to the number of employees and family members that their facility is not large enough.
Also move.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the final item at this time is the report of the dog officer for the months September and October.
Motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Go back to the conservation land.
Actually, if you could move forward with something else, Tom is going to run down to the office and get a copy of the plan.
Okay, Parks and Rec Department committee here. A motion to move to that part of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to
Go out of order.
go out of order to meet the Parks and Recreation.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Welcome, Mike.
Hello, everybody. We've got a couple of things that we want to present tonight. First, I just thought it would be good for us to tell you what we've been doing with the money that we received from NIPRA. We ended up getting $160,000 to, I guess, refurbish the rec facilities in town. And it was the board's decision to start down Beale Street. So what we did was, we put, let me thank Bill Spratt first and Brian Keller from DPW. We were, let me say, the first board we tried to use other departments to help us out to save money. And Bill Spratt and Brian came down with the guys from the DPW and tore up the old tennis court for us down at Beale Street. And it saved us about $15,000 towards that project. So thank you, Bill and Brian and DPW. What we did down there was we made a skateboard park on half of the old tennis court. We bought 2 or 3 pieces. Chief Levenger and the police department purchased a piece for us from some money that they got from a grant. So there's 3 or 4 pieces down there right now. We hope to get a couple of more pieces next spring. We spent $17,560 to Grady & Sons for the paving and the prep work. $11,577 went to Pandolph for the hot top. $2,415 for the installation of the skateboard pieces. $2,495 for fence work that we had to do so we can lock it every night when the kids don't get in there after dark to vandalize it. That leaves us $125,953. What we plan on doing down at Vale Street in the spring is tearing up the basketball court because it's all cracked and there's grass coming through it and everything, and putting in a new basketball court with hoops. Doing any fence work that might need to be fixed down there in the softball and baseball field, and putting in an irrigation system. Right now, how we water it is Daria brings down those guns and those cannons or whatever the heck you call them to water it. So with the irrigation, they'll go on a timer, and I think when it's all done down there, it's really going to be a beautiful recreation area. With any money that we have left over from that, hopefully we have some, we plan on going to the acre and doing some stuff up there. What yet, we really don't know. So that was their first item. Our second item is a little bigger issue. Back in June, if you recall at the town meeting, the townspeople voted $200,000 for the Parks and Recreation to build, I guess, a storage area for our equipment, trucks, lawnmowers, whatever else we have. They told us to get a hold of somebody, so we contacted his name was Leineck, Haynes and Smith Architect out of Ashby, Mass. And they wanted us to go over to the DPW to see if we could add on to that. I did leave a manila folder in front of everybody's seat there, if you want to look at it and follow along. So, we did receive a letter from Leineck, Haynes and Smith on October 29th. And he drew up a blueprint for us. He went over and did all the site work. And unfortunately, what they came back with, we don't feel is appropriate for what we need. They've also gone over the $200,000 mark, and he's figuring it's going to cost us approximately $270,000. Now, what we would get for that $270,000 is not an attachment to the DPW burn, because he just doesn't feel that that structure is strong enough to hold an attachment. So he's going to have to leave at least a foot or two and put a four-walled building up beside, facing the far side of our building would be close to the Fitch Road projects. 28 feet wide by 90, I believe it's 98 feet long. What that gives us, if you're thinking about it now, is 28 feet wide. That's kind of like a drive-through. They planned on putting a door on Fitch Road side of the building and another door at the other end of the building that leads into the DPW yard. There is no way possible we could turn a dump truck around and to go out to Fitch Road side at 28 feet wide. We just don't feel like for $270,000 that would be the wisest place to go. So we've got a couple of proposals that we would like to at least talk to you about tonight.
That excuse me, that square footage is
Yeah,
also only like 2,500 square feet, right?
Yeah, I believe it's 27 something.
2,700 square feet, and that's at $270,000.
Yeah, the square footage of that is 2,744 square feet for 270 approximately. That's not saying he can't come in under 270, but it certainly isn't saying that he can't come in over 270 either. The other proposal we had is that we're down at John Busnow's property now at 1155 Main Street. Right now we're down there, he's got 8,400 square feet, which is plenty big enough. John right now charges us $2,000 a month without a lease. He was nice enough to help us out and just go month to month, so that when we do find something permanent, we're not tied into a lease and we have to stay there. And it wouldn't cost the town any more money if we had to break that lease. Right now, we give him $2,000 a month, but if we had to change that to stay there, I'm sure Mr. Busnow would want to sign a lease, and he may want to raise his rent a little bit. And third, currently right now at Greeley Street, I don't know the number of Greeley Street, but if you were going down Brook Street,
Yes.
Yeah. Take
and
a
you
left.
get to Susanna's, you take a left. there is a steel building right there where Perkins Company right now has their trucks. I don't even know what they do out of there. That building is for sale. It's 8,500 square feet. And his asking price right now is $300,000. I believe John Moran has gone over with Daria to look at the building. It certainly is big enough. And our way of looking at it was for an extra $30,000, rather than go to the DPW for a drive-through building, we would like to ask for your support to maybe go look at Greeley Street anyway, if we could show some interest on it.
I would like to, not even do the math of saying for the extra 30,000 though. If that's their asking prices at 300,000, the possibility could be there that it could be had for 270 or 275 or whatever the number is.
But
it's certainly a
understand
larger
that
space.
Right. It would be actually beautiful. I did put a kind of a quick draft in that folder of the Greeley Street building. Right now, too, he has office space upstairs that they use down there. So, not that the office is costing us any money on High Street, but I believe in another year or so that agreement that we had with the people at Oxford Court is up. So that's not to say that they're not going to turn around and say, if you want to stay here, it's going to cost you a rental. We could put our office down there. There is sufficient parking if someone wanted to come down and sign up for a program. There is definitely plenty of room for what we would need. It's got the heat, it's got the hot water, it is well insulated.
Mike, I have a question. Would you put the office on the second floor?
On the second floor. I believe it is handicapped accessible.
That's what I was going to ask.
I believe it is. Can I tell you that? Definitely? No.
That's all I was going to ask.
Mike, I got a question. Who came up with the dimensions of 28 feet, 98 feet long? I mean,
That's the contractor, the architect that we hired.
really?
From, yeah, if you want to take a look at this bigger blueprint, Mark, it kind of shows it a little bit better.
Proposed living room?
This is just a quick floor plan that we drew up. Over here on Fitch Road.
We got to.
Exactly. And then that's it. That's, with building code and stuff, he has to say 20 feet off of the next door neighbor property line. So that's all it leaves us is 28 feet.
Mike, can you just back up a few minutes? Maybe I'm missing this, but in the initial town meeting vote, it was 200,000.
200.
Right. And the building that we're talking on Greeley, you've got that he's asking 300,000.
Exactly. So what we're doing.
So we're looking at 100,000, not necessarily.
Well, I guess if you looked at it that way, yes, but I kind of wasn't looking at it that way, because if we stayed at Fitch Road and said, well, let's go along with what the townspeople voted on at town meeting, his price is approximately 270. So somewhere down the line, if we decided to stay at Fitch Road, we're going to need another $70,000. Because the 200 is just not going to be enough money to build what the townspeople had voted on.
This is on one company, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, if that was the case, you would have to go back to town meeting anyways for more money.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess what I'm saying, and I'm not opposed to it.
I guess what I was
I'm
saying
not
to you,
opposed- I'm
Mary
not
Rose,
opposed to it.
I know what you're saying. We would have had to ask for another $70,000 at town meeting. My thing was, why ask for another $70,000 for something that really isn't going to suffice what we need? Add on an extra $30,000 is what I was saying. I know what you're saying. I hope I'm giving you the answer you're looking
I just think the
for.
presentation is more clear that way. I mean,
Okay.
the preliminary proposal for the 200,000 was because we thought we were only going to have to do 3 walls because of the
Right,
existing.
Right.
So, I mean, after doing the engineering study, you find that that's not the case, and you can't do it for 200,000, you're going to have to do it for 270.
Right.
And you're really not going to get an adequate building that would really fit the needs of
No,
what you're
not at all.
looking for. And do I agree with you that I think Greeley Hill is a much better building? I absolutely do.
Okay.
But I think from a perspective of that is $30,000 more. It isn't.
It's
To
100.
go to Greeley, right, it's 100.
I was
That's
trying
all
to
I'm
be
saying.
cute, Mary Rose, that's...
But ultimately, we're gonna have to go back to town meeting to get an increase in either option A or option B. And if we look at the 2 options, your cost per square footage is much higher in going down Fish Road and DPW than it would be buying a fixed cost. And again, I'll stay away from the $300,000 number because that's buying at the asking price.
That's the asking price, right.
So maybe it is only 70, but it's still something we'll have to go back to town meeting for. I think it's appropriate and appreciated that you folks are coming and letting us know that you're going to be in need of the additional funding. The facility has to get built. You folks need a home.
Something has to be done.
And 28-foot wide is going to give you nothing more than a drive-through. You're not going to have any storage space.
I believe the car wash down on Main Street is a little wider than that, to be honest
Yeah,
with
but
you.
they've got those big furry things.
Can I just ask you one question on Antioch? I know that previously when Mark and I were on the committee and we're kicking around, different sites, I know that at that particular time, there was some desire by some people involved with Parks and Rec to go down and construct something on Vale Street. And that because there was so much activity in and around that area that involved Parks and Rec. I guess my question to you two as part of Parks and Rec committee, have you folks looked into perhaps researching whether it could be accomplished, and can you do a building for a price in that price range that would fit the needs of?
So, we really didn't put a lot of effort into it, Mary Rose, but we did ask around about could we possibly put something down at Vale Street, and we were told because of the Tennessee gas line that was put down there, I believe it was, approximately 10 years ago, that probably the only spot that the building would fit, it just happens to cut right through there. So we were told no, that you couldn't put a permanent structure there for that reason, because of the Tennessee gas line that goes through the property. That was it. We left it at that. I mean, we never pursued it.
Well, and again, I don't know if that line goes off where the playground at one point was.
Right.
Is that where that line runs
That's
through?
kind of where it goes through, yeah. And if you really went down there and looked at it, that would probably be the only place to put a building that would fit everything, because it would have to go back towards the center field, I guess you would say, of the softball field where everybody parks, and take up a piece of that. And as a matter of fact, I think they said because right now we're looking into replacing the playground equipment that's down there. And there's a little bit of studying that we have to do to see how we can go about doing that. They just told us that you have to be very careful. So these people that put the playgrounds in, I mean, they'll get the plans and they'll take care of all that for us.
I mean, my concern, I guess, to some degree, is the fact that, it was passed at town meeting in, June, and that there really hasn't been any process to this point that we are physically now in the process of either building or moving to a permanent home, and we're still expending monies, to house the equipment.
Yep. And those monies are gone too. That's another issue we're going to have, but we'll be seeing the finance committee next week. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, that's what we have. We're just asking for your support, and hopefully we can get it put on the warrant at town meeting.
The building on Gorilla Street would be, you'd be able to move in right away.
Yeah.
And you have a fixed cost,
Actually,
you know what your,
April
you know what your
1st.
purchase price is.
April
Once you set
1st.
that.
I mean,
I'm saying, once you set a buy price, you don't have the hidden cost of doing new construction.
No,
So,
it's
you know,
move-in
you
condition.
would have a known entity there as far
I
as...
mean, could we go ahead and negotiate a price, because I don't think $300,000 is set in stone. Obviously, we'd like to go a lot lower than that. I mean, could we negotiate something, come back to town meeting, ask, this is no extra money that we're gonna need to make this project work?
When would you be able to move in?
He, the owner that's down there right now told us April 1st.
So you're looking at 5 more months if John...
Yeah, the Perkins does have a lease until the end of March.
So it's $10,000 right there.
Yeah, but that's something they'll deal with the finance committee on getting a transfer on it. But I think what Mark is asking is a good question. You know, could and should we pursue, you know, negotiating a purchase and sale price contingent upon a town meeting approval on the piece of property?
Yeah, before we get to, bring it to town meeting, saying this is what we have.
And then we know the difference is X
Right.
over what the 200,000 that we already had afforded.
So we can just go right from there, if town meeting approves it, we can go and move in the next day.
And if you become an owner, you're gonna be able to collect the rent down there until April? Are we gonna
You
become
can't-
landlord?
No.
You can't
No.
purchase something that you don't have the money to purchase.
Right.
You only have $200,000.
But we could
so-
negotiate
Oh, you can-
contingent upon a town meeting
Absolutely.
approval,
Right.
is what I'm
Absolutely.
saying, so that we have a
Right.
set price that we then go to town meeting on.
And say, this is what
say,
we
this is
have.
an additional dollar amount. I mean, we approved it at town meeting with it going out the bond, not coming out of, general fund.
Yeah, but I think, unless I misunderstood, Dean, I think you were talking about, could you negotiate pending that, and that you move in?
If we negotiated a purchase and sale and it's approved at town meeting, and say that happened in December, for the next 4 months, you're gonna be a landlord there collecting rent?
I don't think the
I don't
actual
think
purchase would take place that
Can't,
quick.
I mean,
I'm saying if you want,
At this point, we wouldn't be till the annual town meeting, the end of April, unless we have the board calls.
Special town meeting.
Right.
To answer your question, theoretically, if we became the owners and there was a pending lease, and the lease was signed over to us, we would collect the rent during that period of time. If we had everything else lined up, but I don't think we have a town meeting quickly enough to be able to achieve that.
that's all I was asking.
My only suggestion would be that if we're going to negotiate the potential purchase of the property, that should be done, in my opinion, in executive session when we're discussing the negotiating strategy of the town so that we can preserve the town's interest. That's the way we've done it in the past with NIPRO and some other properties. So my only suggestion would that we do that and that I review the purchase and sale agreement before it's signed to make sure that we protect the town's interest.
Could a member of the Parks and Recreation be invited to that meeting of the executive session?
Sure.
Okay. I would just like to see one or two of us be able to come in and sit with you. I guess that's it.
All right. Prior to leaving, Michael, I'd like to thank you personally as far as your running of the Parks and Rec flag football program. Once again, you did just an outstanding job for the town. The kids across the board had smiles on their faces all fall. Great dedication, and this past week with the national anthem being played under the lights and things like that, you showed the kids what fun is and sportsmanship. So my hat's off, and I appreciate your commitment to the kids in town.
Thank you, Mark.
Take care.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you to the Parks and Rec for the support of it too.
Yep. This is the first time, by the way, we've been in here with just a handful of people.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we would set that date up as quickly as possible. Yeah. for the-
Okay. We can schedule that as early as our next meeting. Michael?
Okay, sure, yeah.
Okay, we'll go back to our agenda of the 7:30 donation of conservation land, Sherlock Holmes, Inc.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is Crystal Perry. Crystal's a clerk of the Sherlock Holmes Corporation. And I think you've met her before, except Mr. Mendoza hasn't met her. And we're just here, we have the original deed, so you can see it. We're here after extensive contact with the Conservation Commission, and you'll see that Conservation has, but for one member who wasn't available, has already signed. I drafted the deed with Mr. Sargent's participation because it has to be in a certain format. It's a donation to the town, and the property would be under the jurisdiction, I guess you'd call it that, of the Conservation Commission. The land involved is what remains from, there was a large piece of land up off of Wilson and Clamshell and running down I forget what side it would be. I call it the right-hand side of Berlin Street as you head toward Berlin, out in back of all the houses. All of that property was owned by Jimmy Maffei. Jimmy sold that piece, which was 30-some-odd acres, to Sherlock Holmes, Inc. And then Sherlock built just along the frontage on Wilson and Clamshell, the 11 new houses that you see up there. So there remains a large piece of about 26 acres, which is all backland. There's no real frontage anywhere. The Conservation Commission from early on was talking to us about possibly donating it back to the town. There was considerable thought on our part to further development back there. It is developable. There's a lot of wet back there, but it's environmentally sensitive. There's no doubt about that. Sherlock has agreed to do this, and what will happen is they'll donate it to the town, and they'll get their economic return by means of a charitable deduction on their tax return. And to accomplish it, we need, obviously, the Conservation Commission and then the board as the chief governing body of the town to assent to the deed, to accept it. It does not require a town meeting vote. And if you'd like to see the land, I'm sure. The actual whole parcel is shown right here. This is Berlin Street, and this is Wilson coming in off of Berlin Street. Wilson, of course, hooks up, and this is Clamshell. The new houses were built right along here, and the remainder of the parcel it's inside this dark line here, and comes out like that, goes right around the pump houses out on Berlin Street. And hooks around like that. That's the piece.
What's to the right of lot 11 there? Is that a more?
That's private. That's
There's a home there?
Yeah, there's homes there. I think that's Philbin's.
Okay.
Does this land at all run into, or is it adjacent to any of the potential project of Tall Pines?
I don't think so, but
There's this little sliver of land that separates this particular piece from Tall Pines, but not
Tall Pines
much.
is on the other side.
yeah.
Do you know where that parcel of land is that,
Is it that line there?
I don't think it's delineated. I think it's,
Would it be out
I
here?
think it's
Oh,
like
over
in
here.
here.
Yeah, it's on the other side of that one.
but the land we're talking about is,
It's all inside that dark line.
A lot of that's underwater, I think.
There's a lot of wet back.
There's a skate back there, matter of fact.
Marshy.
Actually, right in here is, it's underwater. This here is floodplain, so intermittently, there's a stream that runs through here, but it's intermittent.
And there's
But
water
There's
there.
a large area of upland in this area with existing paths that run through the property.
Yeah.
And there is a potential link if this was ever a rails to trails type.
The answer to the question regarding abutting the future Tall Pines project was,
No.
there's no abutment, there's no abutting there at
I'm
all.
aware that there is, to tell you the truth, because the only place it could actually abut it, because the property line is right here, and this is the,
Right away.
right. So that, the only place it could abut is out here, and I don't think it does, because there's
There's homes there.
houses and all this kind of stuff down there, so I don't think there's any actual touching.
It's close, but it does not touch.
I'd just be concerned that I don't want to impact that project's progress
Oh, I see.
and getting complete. And
that would be my concern too,
Yeah.
that by conveying this land to conservation, does it in any way,
impact the
Impact
ability
the-
for development as an abutting piece of property.
I'm not a lawyer, but I wouldn't think so. I mean, it has nothing to do with it. It's nothing to do with it. Plus, it doesn't even abut each other, so.
Yeah.
You said it was, what, 26 acres, right?
Yeah, and the surveyor is saying 26.1, more or less.
well, I guess I would be more inclined to vote for this if I was absolutely positively comfortable that there was in no way in this conveying of this land that would in any way prohibit or put some kind of a glitch into the final phases of a project that's been going on for over 2 years. That would be my concern.
If you would like, and it's just a proposal, if you would authorize myself on behalf of the board to meet with both Mr. McCoy and Mr. Philbin, the attorney for the developer of the Tall Pines project, we could then review it collectively to see if there's an impact on that project.
So
I would vote
I'd
for
make,
that.
yeah, I'd make
I'll
a
move
motion,
that.
or I'd request a motion that we accept this contingent upon not being a negative, legal review and clearance that it would not be a negative impact from a Concom standpoint.
We'll meet with David Philbin.
Okay.
I'm sure I-
So
I'll so move.
Motion's been made by Mary Rose, is there a second?
Could I would like to request that this does not take, because we do want to complete this
Part of the end of the year.
within the end of the year, and I mean, I would hope that you would realize that this was a significant donation to the town as conservation land, and in no way have we ever spoken with or conspired with, so to speak, this abutting developer.
No.
We're not implying
Yeah,
that at all.
we're not making that-
implying at all. It's, if I may, Mr. Chairman, it's just that this land is very close to a project that potentially is in upwards of excess of over $100 million and potentially tremendous amount of tax revenue to the town. It has been through a very long, lengthy process. And I'm only speaking from my perspective that I want to make sure that in accepting this land to the conservation, that it know-how overlaps into a process that has been through all kinds of conservation and everything else, and then we find that in accepting this, even though there's a small portion, it somehow prohibits or has an adverse effect in the process. That's all we're saying.
I very much doubt that it does, but nobody's
And it
actually
may
raised,
cause-
nobody's
it may
ever raised the
cause-
question until you
Right.
have
We
tonight.
just, we'd rather err on the side of caution here and make sure that, and by the way, we greatly appreciate the open space donation to Concom. with the acceptance of it based on the fact that it doesn't impact a very large project that's been ongoing for a number of years with a significant infrastructure impact, positive impact, I feel, for the town as far as tax and some infrastructure improvements. So, not to negate the donation in any way, we greatly appreciate it in moving it to the town, but we just want to make sure the whole development of that area of town is done properly and we don't have any conflict.
No, I'm sure that Dennis and I and Dave can get together and we've done
There would
this.
be no reason why we couldn't move it forth with and sure get it done before the new year.
Okay.
And get it the deed recorded so that the tax benefits could be realized this year. So
Yeah, that's-
just
I don't
myself.
think, could it be done by the end of November, do you believe, so that we don't have to be
Sure,
pushing
it's
it
just
way
that my
up?
schedule, Tom's schedule,
Yeah.
Dave's open.
We can get together with Dave real quick.
That won't be a problem. We can get it done.
Okay.
Motion's been made and seconded, all in favor?
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Give me the deed.
Yes, you did. I can give that back to you.
I'll hold on to it and then back and we show it.
Next on the agenda, Superintendent Spratt, water filtration plant. What I'm going to do is go into executive session in regards to our staffing for may impact personnel, and so we'll go under union contract. So under Article 3, we go into executive session. Vote requires a motion.
Also move.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Mary Rose?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Dean? Aye. Chair votes aye. We should take between 20 minutes and a half hour.
First is a report of the traffic committee. They met recently to discuss several items. The first was a request from the school committee to review the proposed access road that the school department would like to build in conjunction with the elementary school to have a egress from the parking lot onto Main Street. It would go between the fire station and the adoptive video to have a road coming up there. I think the board of selectmen had discussed this recently. And the traffic committee is recommending approval of the plan with the condition that there be a walkway along the road in case students are coming down the ramp. And at the top, there be a stop sign and a right turn only sign. And that only be an exit route, and that cars would enter from Church Street and exit through that ramp onto Main Street. So those were some of their conditions. Yeah.
With right turn on.
Right turn only onto Main.
Pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Under discussion, this then is moving on to the meeting with the planning board in December to continue their, I guess, design review process.
Right, this will have to be a amendment to the site plan review. Planning board did site plan review for the elementary school project. This was not as part of the scope of that approved plan, so now they would have to go back to amend that plan to include this as part of the project. And that, as the chairman indicated, that meeting will be December 7th, I believe. Is that Wednesday? December 7th. Okay. I think it's December.
There are a few other traffic committee recommendations or requests that the board act on. Mike.
Right. The next was a request from Adopt a Video to move a sign that's currently in front of their establishment. They asked that it be moved to allow, not removed, but just moved down a bit to allow better access for snow removal. When a plow comes to plow that sidewalk, the sign was kind of right in the path of travel. So the traffic committee was okay with that request.
Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to approve that, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The next was a request to send a letter to the management of Prescott Mills. There's complaints that there are cars coming out of the parking lot for the Prescott Mills parking lot, and cars are coming out quickly from the parking lot onto Clark Street. And I guess the traffic committee didn't feel the town could order stop signs on private property, but asked if the management could work with the town to put up stop signs to make the area a little bit more safer for vehicles egressing that property.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Under discussion is pretty dangerous. We've had a few people with near-miss accidents down there, so hopefully the ownership will take advantage of our recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
The next was a request from a landlord who owns some rental property on School Street, asking to amend the winter no parking or winter parking ban to exempt School Street, to allow his tenants to park on the street during winter snowstorms. This is something that the traffic committee felt would be prohibitive to the DPW to keep that street clear, and they said that they would not, this is an issue that's up to the Board of Selectmen, but their recommendation is to deny that request to change the winter parking ban.
Make a motion to deny the request for the exemption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next is a response from...
Just to add to the traffic committee, I know that this has been kicked around for a long time, but I don't know that the people on Lawrence Street have had any success with the truck traffic, and I thought the traffic committee was going to look into that again and to try to do something to alleviate the truck traffic down there.
Yeah, one of the ideas was to put up some Jersey barriers to try and redirect the traffic, and the DPW and fire chief and police chief investigated that, and they felt that would not be a feasible option. They would not give enough room for traffic to get around them if it was put right in the middle of the road. It was trying to block off certain access for trucks going into that neighborhood, but they felt it would then limit access for other vehicles as well. So they didn't have enough of a radius.
On Lawrence Street, then?
I don't know if we have an answer at this point. I mean, it's been traffic committee, it's been a couple of years that they've been discussing this issue. We've tried signage, we've tried no truck parking, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, the police department is trying to do enforcement to stop trucks from going down that street, but they can't be there 24 hours a day. The management of the companies have been working with the town to educate their drivers, but when they have private haulers coming in that don't know the rules, and if there isn't a police officer there at that moment, they go wherever they want. So I don't know what the answer, that they thought would have been the best answer is to block off that whole section to force the trucks to go down Parker Road, but they felt that it would limit other vehicles as well. They wouldn't have access for emergency vehicles and
Honestly,
whatnot.
there's not too much success, because I met in the supermarket on Saturday, a woman from Lawrence Street. She said that they've seen absolutely no change whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation. I think there's an answer to it, other than continued enforcement and increased enforcement as far as truck traffic with the police department. Because we can't risk the safety of the residents or access on the road. And the radius of that turn won't allow the fire trucks to get in there.
Well, man, how often are we setting up like a police officer, the police there for like a couple of hours at a time, or are they just going and spot check once in a while? Maybe we set up a spot, somebody's there for 8 hours, see what happens.
Yeah, I'm not,
Show some enforcement that way, and the people know that we're real about it. Whatever that will stop.
Peak hours when the trucks are.
Sure.
Exactly.
Sure.
And maybe we can talk to Chief Levenger about that.
yeah. sure,
Yeah,
I'll
something.
talk to them. I'm not sure how often they go down there, or when they go down there, or whether it's on patrol or just certain hours, I'm not sure, but,
Maybe
sure.
we do it like we do at the middle school, you know, they park the car and they see what happens.
Speaking of middle school, I think we have to let the residents know that 20-mile-an-hour speed limit is from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You go by there different times of the day and night, and there's people definitely flying through that section of the road. And I think it could be a very hazardous situation up there. So when the lights are flashing, they're not broken, that's the way they're meant to be. On from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay. The next item is correspondence from HTSD, Highway Traffic Signal Design, I believe. They're the engineers doing the emergency vehicle preemption light at the intersection of Church and Main Street for the Clinton Fire Station. The project, as the board has been aware, when they had a briefing by the engineers some time ago, Mass Highway Department is paying for the construction. The town of Clinton is paying for the design, but Mass Highway keeps adding new requirements and new specifications, which is increasing the cost of construction and consequently increasing the cost of design. And the last time the engineers, they do have a request for an amendment to their contract to cover added costs. The Board of Selectmen, when the engineers proposed this, the Board of Selectmen indicated that they would be hesitant to approve amendment to the design contract until we got confirmation that the state was going to fund the full construction piece. And they have gotten, in October, they revised the new tip plan, and the town of Clinton project is now on there for the full cost of the construction. So, in order to continue design throughout the winter, to hopefully get this project underway sometime, I think that the schedule might be next year, that they're hoping to continue working through the winter if the contract amendment is approved. This money is coming out of Chapter 90. From the beginning, it has been paid by Chapter 90 funds. So.
Pleasure of the board.
I know we met with Mr. Diaz before from the state, and I think that was, I can't remember if that was, I thought it was 500 before, and I thought they were going to see that's on the state, because we're going to do all big intersections in town.
Yeah, I believe this cost will include all the 3 intersections. I think their initial cost, I think, was only around 200,000. I think it's gone up.
It might have been closer to like 300, I thought.
Yeah, now it's gone up to 510. So the new number is the full cost.
Michael, do you have a timeline on when this is going to be completed?
I don't have exactly what the schedule is. I think they need to complete design, and then it goes through hearing processes and approvals, and then it has to go out to bid, and then it goes from there. So I'm not sure when the funding schedule is or what the bid schedule is at this time.
Okay.
The deputy fire chief, who's been very active and very instrumental in this project, and he's been kind of the project manager for the town, liaison with Mass Highway and the engineers, and really escorting this project along. Obviously, it's going to help them out and affect them at the fire station. So he's been, John McLaughlin has been doing a lot of the legwork, and I appreciate his help to do that, because there's been a lot of calls been made and meetings and setting things up, and he's been handling that. But I can try and find out the schedules if need be.
All right, thanks, Mike. Well, I'll make a motion to grant the approval of the amendment.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Again, on the discussion, I think our main concern on our prior meeting with Mr. Diaz was to make sure that we were officially going to be reimbursed, and with that being done, I think it's appropriate to support this. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item is a list of board and commission appointments. The vacancies, the current vacancies on appointments under the Board of Selectmen's jurisdiction was placed in the local newspapers and we've had responses to several of the vacancies. So a list, there are some reappointments for 2001 that are pending, but also then there are some new candidates that are interested in serving the town of Clinton, and that is on that memo that I submitted to the board.
Michael,
The board.
Question?
Yeah.
Sitting in the barber's chair today down on Main Street, my barber's on the Fuller Field Commission,
Okay.
and I kind of had a light bulb go off in my head as it was getting cut. Can we make all the appointments expire on a certain day or become effective on a certain day, say like January 1 of a certain year? That way you're not hunting down people that their commission expired on June 30th and another that expires in October. If you made it all contingent on a start date, wouldn't it be a lot easier to kind of track?
Yeah, sure, absolutely, whether it be, it's something we could look into, and I don't know if it would be a calendar year or a fiscal year, but, whether it's, absolutely, whether it's done every January or every July 1st.
Whatever works.
Would be easier, yeah, absolutely.
So maybe we should look into that and see how we could
Yeah.
either move ahead certain appointments or dates of appointment or whatever to kind of make it fall on a certain day.
What I'd ask is, rather than act on tonight's list, is that if we could resolicit that we still have a number of vacancies.
right.
Disability, recycling, Montechusett Regional Planning.
Total 6, actually.
Yeah, Weed Board, we have the Personnel Board, the Historical Commission, Conservation Commission, and ZBA alternate also. So if people are still interested, if they could contact the Town Administrator's office, and we'll take this up for consideration at our next meeting for appointments.
I don't know if the board would want to do the reappointments or do them all together at next meeting?
We'll just do them at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you. The next item is something that we'd ask the board to go into executive session, maybe at the end of the meeting. It's a Clinton Housing Associates settlement, Clinton Housing Associates versus Town of Clinton. The Law Committee has agreed to settle this case, and it needs, the final agreement needs to be signed by the Board of Selectmen. The solicitor would like to give the board an update and briefing on that prior to it being finalized. So if we could do that maybe at the end of the meeting, so it's not to inconvenience the people here at the meeting. And the final issue is, again, just formally the board getting a copy of a letter from the Department of Housing and Community Development relative to the new Economic Development Director hire for the town of Clinton. A meeting was held last week between some town officials and DHCD to discuss this issue. I don't know if the chairman wants to elaborate on that meeting. There has been contact to the office today, to the Selectman's office from the director of that agency for some dates to meet further with the board to discuss this issue if the board so chooses. But at this point, I don't know if the chairman wants to kind of discuss last week's meeting.
Well, the meeting we held down in Boston last week was an opportunity to meet with DHCD and discuss the hiring process that we went through as far as the interview process. We also wanted to afford our appointee an opportunity to discuss his background and his qualifications, which Mr. Gibbons was able to do in front of members of DHCD. I think coming out of the meeting, we had a positive meeting with the state in the sense that they had a much clearer understanding of our hiring process and that we actually did interview all candidates. There was some real misunderstanding on their part due to just reading press clippings rather than actually communicating with the town. And coming out of that meeting, I think we were in good standing. They were rather strong on their position in regards to Mr. Gibbons in the position here in town. And they do, per their contract, reserve the right to review and approve or disapprove a town appointment. So they do have the legal grounds to question and approve or disapprove of our appointment. So they've currently are withholding further funding of any of our grant programs for the town. But